Welcome, everyone, brothers and sisters, to a very special night with a very special guest. Alhamdulillah, I'm sure that all of you uh, have been impacted differently when it comes to the benefit that Shaykh Uthman Ibn Farooq has brought. Just basically, the hearing from the people here so far, we hear the benefit is not just towards you, but also towards friends and family as well. Alhamdulillah. So we're very happy to host Shaykh Uthman um, at our event today. Um, but first thing, again, Sheikh, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
There's a question that I think is on everyone's minds, the picture. So,
Which picture are we talking about?
that picture, everyone knows the famous picture. Um, what's the story about the picture, briefly?
Uh, Contrary to popular opinion, it's not photoshopped. It's not my son pretending to be me. That is actually me. Long, long time ago. I was probably about 16 in that picture. Yeah, so I had burned and thrown away all my old pictures and things, but this one survived with my mother. And when we were planning on, and we still are, inshallah, making a documentary with some brothers in Malaysia. So this is one of the things that we found. And alhamdulillah, once they got out, it's been around. So
Alhamdulillah, that's amazing, mashallah. So everyone, it's not Photoshop, it's not Sneeko, it's not other things. It's the
I'm way
Sheikh
better
himself.
looking. What are you talking about?
It's the Sheikh himself, and Alhamdulillah. So quite the journey from there to there. Just briefly, if I'm sure that many of you do already know the story, but for our viewers joining us online or here today, please tell us kind of your beginnings and your
Inshallah.
upbringing.
I see some LA hats representing here, so got some Californians here. Um, I was raised in Southern California, San Diego, California, and during the late 80s and 90s, as most people know, it was a very rough time, a lot worse than what you see today. Um, the story, or what I'm going to share with you as a part of my life, I didn't share for a long time. Meaning, for a long time, I didn't talk about it because personally, I didn't want to glorify it. So the only reason I did share it, and I began on a podcast with our brother Sajid Lifham at his request, was to let people out there, as we see a lot of young faces here, mashallah, know that that lifestyle has a very bad expiration date. Meaning, there is no good retirement plan for it, and there is an exit out. And there is a way to get out and survive, and I'm a living example of that. Unlike many people, I did not get involved in gangs because of rap music or because I wanted to be cool or because I wanted some kind of authority or because of any of those reasons. Many people misunderstand why young people get involved in gangs. People think it's broken families or something. Not necessarily. You always have to look at situations. I'm Pashtun ethnically, and my parents were divorced when I was very young. And when I was young in the U.S., I was in a very bad neighborhood. So I mean, what we call the barrio or the ghetto or the hood, whatever you want to call it, in East Side San Diego. And my parents, being immigrants, didn't really realize that there are areas that are very bad and have such. I mean, to them, the idea was you got to the U.S., you made it. And many of the people here, as your parents, that may have immigrated, this is the whole thing that they were struggling somewhere else, wars, famine, economic challenges. When they get to the U.S., they think, okay, this is it. We made it to the promised land, not realizing that we have our own challenges and dangers here. So, you know, I went to a regular school, and there was no I didn't know any Muslims. I didn't grow up around any Muslims. I didn't go to a masjid. When I was 10 years old, basically, through a lot of fights and things, I got the attention of gangs. But they would offer like, "Hey, do you want to join the gang?" And I was like, "No, it wasn't really my thing." One of my very close friends at the time, he was Iranian. He was not Muslim, interestingly. He was, his family was Shia, and they became Christian to get a visa to the US because during the Shah's
Sheikh, if you could.
time.
So we have a phone call from Toronto South Detention Center. Do I press one? One.
Accept charges.
X.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. How are you, أخي?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. It's your brother Uthman.
I can't hear properly.
Let me give you the Sheikh will take the phone. Just for context, this is a brother calling from jail right now, and we organized a way for him to be able to call in, so he wanted to ask the Sheikh some advice.
Inshallah. This is your brother Uthman. I was just telling the backstory a little bit, but you want to?
Oh, he'll ask a question.
I know you're calling from a restricted area, so if you have any questions first, you want to take those first?
He'll ask questions.
Okay, inshallah. Or I'll tell the story. If you have questions, you can jump in, yeah? No.
He'll ask the questions. So after 6 o'clock, they don't allow phone calls.
Okay.
Brother, say the question again. Go ahead, Akhi.
So my questions, So my questions were,
phone check.
how does he support his family and himself from being in a condition where he's incarcerated? That was my first question that I wanted to ask.
That's a great question. How to support your family while you're incarcerated, right? Is that your question?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be very honest, it's difficult because when you're locked up, you can't really work. They make you work, but they don't pay you for it. But again, if you have some kind of businesses, if you got something that you invested in, then inshallah, that passive income can help the family. If you don't, I mean, you can speak to some brothers or the masjid and say, okay, look, I need to help my family. If you can help me, then when I get out, I can pay you back. So I mean, you do what you can, but it's difficult. That's one of the difficult things about the gang world or the cartel world or all of that is, when you're out doing the dirt, you don't really realize the challenges that you will face once stuff hits the fan. And when it does, then you are unable to even control your own life. Like here, everybody tonight is sitting here. You drove here, you walked here, you came here. You can leave when you want. You can go eat when you want. But you can ask the brother. When you're locked up, it's not like that. You can't go where you want. You can't wake up when you want. You can't sleep when you want. You can't walk out. You're in chains. And that's why young people should be very careful about the decisions they make, because sometimes those decisions will end up with a death sentence, or not just in the prison system but on the streets. So I think everybody should think about their families and be careful about not putting themselves in a situation, because you have this choice right now sitting here to make the decisions that will affect your future. Any other questions?
Thank you for that. Thank you for your answer. Second question, when you're in an environment and you're trying to get out and like your friends putting you back in college, things like that, as you balance the system, balance between me and like supporting your friends and
That's another beautiful question. How do you balance trying to get out from that street life and follow the deen, and at the same time not abandon your friends who keep bringing you back in? To be very honest, the answer that at least that worked for me is you have to cold turkey leave the street life. You have to disassociate yourself with it completely. You can reach back in and try to call some of the people out, but you can't have your feet in two boats. When you have a boat and you put your feet in two boats, as the boats spread apart, you're either gonna have to choose a boat or fall in the water. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told us, "Al mar'u ala deen khalil." A person is upon the religion of his friends. So you need to be very careful who you befriend. If your friends are the type that are still running in the streets and still doing dirt and still doing stuff that breaking the law and things, you for you to get away from that, you just have to completely shut off from that, change your environment, be in the masjid, get involved in da'wah, get involved in the masjid, involved in Muslim youth organizations and so on. And then when you are stable, you can reach back out as I did, and we'll talk about that inshallah, to kind of call them back out as well. But you can't jump back in and out because those are two worlds that don't mix.
Now, thank you, Shaykh Uthman.
Jazakallah khair.
Pastor Uthman there, and that's a few questions for you too, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
So yeah, my first question I want to ask is, keeping people, like community is like really small, like everyone knows each other, like family, barbecue foods, weddings, Ramadan, Eid, so a lot of families, there's a lot of cousins, know each other, right?
Okay.
I want to think that people, also, when someone hears something, they always have a best friend or like either cousin they want to tell, and then they hear something, tell their like parents, and we'll just go on and just they'll just talking about the situation.
People
Yeah, so
very family
like,
close.
the party.
Okay. Let me.
Yeah, I got your question. So basically,
Yeah,
the brother's asking if so his family is very connected,
Okay.
and at the same time, like people are asking about their son, like your son is this, your son is that. They're also kind of a little embarrassed of him, the situation that he's in, and so
and some people they don't know, like some parents they don't know, and some kids they don't know, they're just kids, right? And they see my dad or my mom and aunt, like, yo, what happened to so and so, okay? What should they say, like, what should I say?
so what advice? Actually, sorry, you have a mic.
So I know that when you get caught up in the world, and especially when you get locked up, or when some charges get dropped on you, it's a very hard thing for the family to deal with, as far as embarrassment and the extended family kind of mocking it and so on. But alhamdulillah, as you have changed your lifestyle, your direction, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Whatever happened in the past happened in the past. You have to deal with it. When you did the crime, you have to do the time. But at the same time, you should let your family know that there is nothing to be ashamed of once you have left that world. If you're still involved in it, then yes, you got to get out of it. Many of the Sahaba radiyanhum, many of the Salihin, like Malik ibn Dinar and others from the Salaf, they used to be bandits. They used to be like Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, their whole tribe were bandits. But when they became Muslim, alhamdulillah, they were great Muslims. They were great assets to the ummah. So leave the past. Tell your family not to be ashamed of the past. Tell them I've changed as a good person. I'm trying my best to be on the Quran and the Sunnah, and that's something they should be proud of you for.
So isn't Adam some of the exposure type thing?
Exposing yourself, isn't it exposing?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to talk about details of what you did unless there is a benefit to warn somebody. Meaning, if you were a big party guy and you had a lot of girls or whatever, don't discuss these things, because you don't wanna glamorize that kind of a thing. But if you reach out to somebody and say, look, I used to be involved in that kind of lifestyle, alhamdulillah, I left, and now I see how foolish it was, then nothing wrong with that. Like Umar ibn Khattab radiyanhu, he used to mock the Jahiliyyah. He used to say, we used to make dates and into statues and we would worship them and then we'd eat them. And it's not that he was praising it, he spoke about what he did in the Jahiliyyah, but in a way to warn people against them. Same thing with Malik ibn Dinar, as I mentioned. He talked about how he used to be a bandit, but he didn't talk about it in a way to praise it. He did it in a way to warn people. So, in that sense, if you're doing it in a way to reach out to people, nothing wrong with that. If you're praising it, if you're trying to glamorize it, that's wrong.
Assalamu alaikum.
Another
Assalamu alaikum.
thing is,
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
Akhi, can you give it to your brother?
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum. Just no government names, brother. Alhamdulillah. So yeah, just the brothers are here tonight, and we're running a little bit out of time, inshallah. But definitely the Sheikh will give you guys some last few words of advice. Just for the brothers and sisters here, I'll explain a little bit after the call, inshallah, the context behind this phone call. But inshallah, the Sheikh is going to just give you a general advice, and inshallah, once you guys get out, you'll be able to pray here again, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect you, brothers, and to keep you on the right path. In Islam, whatever happens, we say is qadr from Allah. Qadr Allah wa ma sha fa'al. Whatever Allah has written is what's best. Alhamdulillah, you're not dead. Alhamdulillah, you're not paralyzed. Alhamdulillah, you're not looking at multiple life sentences like many of the people that I grew up with. This is a chance for you to truly change your life. And as I see good in you, brothers, mashallah, you're here, you're talking, you're asking good questions. Continue to be on the good path. A very important piece of advice from me: don't waste your time when you're inside prison. That time can be utilized. I know many brothers in San Diego that memorized the entire Quran, that learned the Arabic language, that learned ahadith, that changed their lives and came out and became imma and masajid. Alhamdulillah. More than one person I know. So use your time wisely. Memorize the Quran. You're in a place where you may feel imprisoned, but in a way you're protected as well. You don't have clubs, you don't have girls, you don't have dancing, you don't have any of those things to distract you. So build your iman and you benefit yourself. And remember every day that inshallah you will get out by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you're going to be valuable members of our community. So learn those skills while you're there so you can come and help the community when you get out, inshallah.
وياك أخي. Take care, inshallah. We'll talk soon. Alaikum salam wa barakatuh. Okay. Yeah, so these brothers used to pray here. And both of them, subhanAllah, both of them were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Guns were drawn on them and they shot back. Though they left the life because they happened to have been in it and because they were spotted, that's kind of the situation that they were in. But they used to pray here where you guys are sitting right now. And I thought it'd be nice for them to be able to talk, inshallah. So, Sheikh, you can.
Yeah, even if you leave the life, sometimes the life doesn't leave you. So going back to where we were, I mean, when I was 12, one of my good friends got into a fight with some gang members, and me being raised with this, mindset of very macho, Pakhtun, and all this stuff, I jumped in to help him, and he ran away. um, this is how this dunya friends are, he left me to get beat up by three gang members, older gang members, while he ran away. And when I got home, I had a busted eye, busted lip, black eye, all, you know. And my mother, she was a great mother, still is. May Allah protect her, give her a long life. Worried about me, she called my father. My father, he was a tough guy, but again, they were divorced. So he came, and I remember, my father, like he pulled me into the room, and my mother thought he was going to give some good fatherly advice, but he only asked me two questions. He said, one, did you run? I said, no. He said, did you cry? I said, no. I was 12. And he told me that nothing else to worry about. It was the only thing I care about. You didn't run, you didn't cry. And he grabbed a baseball bat, we got in his Camaro, and we started looking for these guys. And, the way gangs work, I don't know how it is out here. They have their own spots where they rep, where they have their, like there's a gang in LA called White Fence, a very famous gang. I think it's from like the 50s. And the reason they're called White Fence is because where they hung out was the White Fence. There's a gang in San Diego called Logan Red Steps. And they're called Red Steps because where they hung out were red steps. So every gang has a place where they post up. So they had their place. We got to them, we saw them, and my father jumped out with a bat. He hit one of the guys, cracked his head. He hit one of the other guys, shattered the guy's shoulder, and we got him back, and got back in the car. The problem is that my father then drove away to his house, and I had to go to school the next day. Um, so 12 years old, I walked into school, and this is elementary school, this is younger grades, and basically they were like, "Yeah, you're dead." The whole school was buzzing. They were like, "Oh, those guys," and they were from a gang called Lomas, 27th Street.
Sheikh, what did they used to call you back then?
At that time, they called me nothing because I wasn't in a gang.
Okay.
But when I get to the joining, I'll tell you what they called me. So that day, I mean, subhanallah, some things are very blurry, but that day I still remember very clearly because I was walking around the school like as if I'm in a dream because I was walking by classrooms and people were like, "Oh yeah, that's that kid that's gonna get killed today." And there was another gang called East Side San Diego, and these are Sureño gangs. So this is all a part of what they call the 13. The letter 13 stands for the M, the Mexican mafia.
Yeah.
So these gangs are all controlled by the Sureños, Southern Californian Mexican mafia. So these guys, they came and they said, "Look, we've seen you, so you can fight, you can hold your ground. You never joined before, but right now, you're gonna get killed today. So either you can join us and we'll protect you, or you're on your own." Now these gangs are not like in the East Coast, the gangs are different. In the West Coast, gangs are different. Everywhere, like you go to the UK, gangs are different. Some places, gangs are like 10, 20 people, 40, 60 people. These gangs are in the hundreds and sometimes in the thousands. So if you look up like MS-13 or 18th Street, these gangs are international gangs, cross borders. They have like some of them have tens of thousands of members. So the gang that attacked me, they were like about a 500 strong gang, and this gang had about 500 to 600 people as well. So they told me, "Look, we'll back you, but you got to join." And that's how I got into the gang world. It wasn't trying to be cool or trying to be a gangster or trying to impress girls or make money. No, it was survival. And many of you that may have been raised in those kinds of neighborhoods, you might get caught up in the same things. You're trying to help your friends, like the brother was asking the question. You're trying to be there for those people that you feel you're close to, and you get caught up in it. Now, at 12 years old, I actually got jumped into a gang, and they getting gangs when they see you, they give you names based as characteristics they see in you. Sometimes they call you travieso, the one who gets in trouble a lot, or diablo, or boxer, whatever the gang names. So they used to call me Shooter. I didn't play billiards or snooker or anything, so I'll let you guess why. Um, but I was young, and I got, once you got in, it wasn't really a choice. Then the gang kind of dictates and what you do, and especially if you're good at planning things and executing things, you move up pretty fast. And those days were strange days. When I look back on it, it's like a strange world, because in a way it was like a movie. You would walk into a classroom with five, six other gang members that were in your class, and the teacher would be afraid of you, and principals would be afraid of you, and security guards would be afraid of you. The police many times would kind of keep their distance, because they knew the Mexican mafia has, they control the prisons, they have members all over, they can hit anybody at any time. So in a way, you had a lot of power, and you had a lot of respect, even though it wasn't a good respect. It was more based on fear. But at the same time, what people don't realize, that it's a very rough life. I mean, I have, if you look here, I have hair missing in some parts of the head, because I got hit with a golf club. I have hair missing in these areas because, especially when I shave my head, you can see very clearly I got hit with a crowbar. I got hit in my back with a baseball bat one time. I was chasing a guy so hard that I blanked out. I got this scar right
Yeah,
here
you're
from
saying.
a knife fight, and this was it was 4th of July at Belmont Park in San Diego, and we ran into an enemy gang, and you couldn't relax. Like, you couldn't just go to the mall and shop. Like, now when I go to the mall and I just shop, to me it's amazing. Because I don't have to be worried about who's behind me and who's in front of me and who's looking at me. And those days you couldn't. You couldn't just go to a roller skating ring like with a bunch of kids. You always had to be ready, because other gangs were always trying to get you. And if you didn't have enough members with you and you get outnumbered, you get caught slipping. So this was a fight I got into at a beach in San Diego, and you know I had a knife, he had a knife, and in the end, when everything broke up, I realized that my finger had been sliced open, but I couldn't go to a hospital, because if you go to a hospital, they're going to ask you questions, and then if there's a police report about young guys being in a knife fight, and you show up at a hospital, you get caught, and then you can't rat. The code on the street is you can't rat. So even if the police comes, you can't tell them this guy did it. So I just went to my friend's house, and he just wrapped it up and tried to put it together. And even till today, the nerves are messed up, because so it was a rough life. It's not glamorous. That's what I'm trying to say. Once you're in it, like these brothers that just called us from prison, you know, they were trying to get out, but even trying to defend yourself could end you up in prison. So the best thing is, don't go to it. If you're in it, you're sitting here, clean cut yourself out of it. Just walk away. You know. And I know it's not easy, and I went through it, and I'll talk about that. Now, those years, I buried a lot of my friends. I mean, as a teenager, when I hear the teenager problems nowadays, oh, the Wi-Fi signal is not strong enough, my data is not 5G. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end. And I think back at days when you would go into school on Monday, and they'd be like, yeah, your friend got killed last night. Yeah, his funeral is tonight, and you would be burying a 15-year-old kid. It was rough, and it was painful. Many times you'd be sitting in school, and another gang would rush the school, 50, 60 guys coming with bats and going through classrooms, finding anybody from your gang and taking you out and stomping you and stuff. You know, I don't know if you know what curb stomping is here. You know what it is? Have you ever seen it in real life? That is something you never forget. You know. So what you do is you beat somebody up, and then you open their jaw, and the curve on the side, you put the jaw there, and you kick them in the back of the head, and it gives them that Joker face. And these are the kind of things that I grew up with. Um, as part of the Southern Californian street gangs, we were the street soldiers for the Mexican cartels. So, you have the Alex Felix cartel, you have the Sinaloa cartel, you have the Zetas, Chapo Guzman, all these famous people. So these guys are on top. They're the big drug dealers. They're the ones that grow the crops. They're the ones that, but who takes it to the street? Who crosses it on the border? Who does the hits? It was us, the street gang members. And the cartels were something insane because if the cartel invited you to come see them, because we were in San Diego, so it's right next to Tijuana. Tijuana is the number one murder capital of the world. Any city in the world that has the highest murder rate. You can Google that. Um, Juarez also, next to El Paso, Texas, also because these are the drug corridors. You always have the hits going back and forth. So I remember the cartel would send word, they'd be like, "Come visit us," and then it was either A, really good, meaning they're going to give you mad amounts of money and whatever. They would have models there. They would have all kinds of crazy, luxurious things, or they were going to kill you. So, I mean, imagine you're 16 and you're being called into another country, a country where you know that the law can't touch the cartels. I remember we used to go to the cartel compounds, and Mexican cops would be saluting us. They were all on the payroll, and they couldn't take the government couldn't take them on. There's billions of dollars. The cop's salary was like 10 grand a year. So
Sheikh, before you get to that, how did you reach to that point in the gang? They just
you know, I mean, alhamdulillah, I was good. I guess you could say. I don't know, or I was bad. I don't know how you want to put it, but you know, whatever Allah wrote. There's a lot, but I mean, I don't really want to get into that kind of detail.
is there like
Might still be
just
statute
one
of liberty.
just one example story?
Hopefully, I won't get arrested for this anymore. But we robbed a gun store, and we did it. I planned it, and I was a teenager, but I thought through things. So we would, at that time, cell phones weren't that common. They had pagers, but not cell phones. So they would have pay phones. So you would go in front of the gun store and call 911 to kind of figure out how long it took the cops, and you would just watch them then, right? Which direction are they going to come from every time? How long does it take? At what time of the day? And you would do that over and over until you kind of had a good understanding. And then you would steal three cars. One car. This street was a two-lane street, one this way, one that way. So all you had to do was park a car.
Is it university or which street?
I'm not going to mention the name of the street. That might get me.
Okay.
But it's the University Avenue is a bigger street. It's off of University, but
Okay.
and then so you park a car, you take the battery out, right? So there's no way to
Take the
start it,
battery out,
right?
okay.
Now again, they can call a tow truck, but that takes time, right? And then the second car, you just ram the actual store. You just, because at that time they would have these metal bars, but it didn't stop a car. So you would just you would get a stupid young gang member be like, all right, hit the accelerator, and he'd be like, and, but that's the thing. When you're in a gang, you do what you're told, right? I mean, so you ram the store, and then you have it timed. You know how long it's going to take the cops. It's not going to be exact. And then you take all the guns. You know what guns you're going to hit. You know what you're going to do. You get out. The third car is to get out, but then you don't use that car. That car just gets you to where there's the sewers, right? So you get to the sewers, you get out of the car, then you go through the sewer because cops are going to bring dogs. And dogs don't want to go through a sewer. And you use black pepper again to throw them off. When you get to the other side, you have bicycles. And then you get on separate bicycles, you go in separate directions, each one with a bag full of guns. Then when you don't just use the guns, you smuggle those guns into Mexico. Because on the Mexican side, there's very strict gun laws. In Mexico, you can't own guns, where the cartel wants guns. So you take the guns there. So a gun that would cost you $500-$600 in the U.S., you could sell for $6,000 there. And what we would usually do is take the guns and then trade those for drugs, and then bring the drugs back. So I used to plan a lot of these things out for them. Not saying that I planned that one in case anybody's still looking. It's just an example.
Yes. Sounds
Fictional.
like something on GTA 5 or something.
Anything that may resemble real life is strictly by coincidence. Narrations have been changed. I don't know, just kidding. Um, so the cartels again, I remember one time I got called and I went to the compound and they would have AK-47s and stuff. And in Mexico, you can't have guns, but these guys would walk around with them. They would be in trucks with the bed filled with guys with AR-15s and military guns. So a lot of times they would buy the guns from the Mexican military. They would sell them for money, right? And 15, 16-year-old kid, you're walking around. These guys had 1911 sticking out of their belts, and I remember one time they had these drums, these big oil drums, and there was a smell that, wallahi, till today I cannot forget that smell. It is so disgusting. It was so vile, and as we walked up to the drums, we realized that they had put people in them, a drum full of oil, and lit them on fire alive. They weren't alive when we saw them, but that human flesh being burnt smell is something you'll never forget. If anybody thinks that gang life is like the movies and GTA, it's not true. There is no X you can press to, get out of the game and come back in. You can't shoot rocket launchers at cops and just walk away. It's not a video game. It's reality. So I kept in that life throughout my teenage years. I mean, I had a very good close friend um, that in front of me in high school got stuck in the chest with a screwdriver. They were jumping another gang member. Um, I remember I walked up to him and I grabbed him, and I mean I can still remember this very vividly. He died, grasping for air with blood, pouring in front of me in my arms. By the time the ambulance came, he was dead. So it was rough. It was a very rough life. There were things about it that people would like. We used to walk into clubs and you would own the place. I mean, nobody was going to get in your way. You had wads of cash. Because you would make all this money, but you couldn't do it. You couldn't invest it. You couldn't buy stocks. You couldn't buy a house. So you would buy like lowriders and put gold rims on them and stupid stuff because you really didn't have anything else to do. And then the killings would go back and forth between the gangs over drug territory, over personal vendettas, over neighborhoods, over honor, over all kinds of things. Now, the Sureños had very strict laws. I mean, as a prison gang that controlled much of Southern California's street gangs, um, there was no homosexuality, no killing of kids, no killing of women, no killing of families, and there were rules. But when you would shoot up somebody's house, people would get hit. So you were always, I mean, personally, I was always worried about my own mother. What if somebody's trying to shoot at me and hits her? Like, there was a plan made to kill me. So there was a gang. One of them got killed by our gang. They decided that it was me they were going to kill. And they set this up. We used to make these elaborate plans back and forth. So they had a girl come and speak to me to come meet her and give me a number and this and that. And subhanallah, as Qadar would have it, I had another plan with another girl that same night. So I was kind of like, I don't know what to do. So I told one of my friends, and he was, so we had a leadership council, 600 people about in the gang, but 13 of us were leaders.
You were one of them.
I was one of them, and he was one of them. So I told him, hey, I'm in this predicament. What should we do? And he was like, hey, don't worry, just give me one, you take one. It's like, all right, there you go. And that's how crazy it was that she wouldn't even care who showed up, as long as you were one of the, head honcho, the carnales they call them. So I went and he went, and I didn't hear till the next morning. I got a call saying, he got killed. And basically, it was a setup to kill me. And the idea was that, you go to this payphone and you ring her pager, and she would come in and take you to her place. But instead, when he called, a bunch of guys came with guns and emptied their magazines into him. I don't know how many bullets were fired, but he was hit with nine. Nine bullets hit him, and bullets went through his hand, through his shoulder, his chest, head, and he had a 357 Magnum. I don't know if you guys know guns out here, but that's a big bullet, that hit him in the head. And just so you guys understand, this is not a movie. In the movie, somebody gets shot, they're still going, and there's just like this little hole with like a little drip of blood. And in those Indian movies, the guy's getting shot and the guy's shooting, and he's like, yeah. That's not the way real life is. I mean, the entry hole was big, but it took the whole back of his head off, the one bullet. And I saw him like that. And then when I saw him, they had patched him up. They had make-upped him. They had put plastic and to cover up the holes where the gunshots were. And I was looking at this man that I knew since I was a kid. We grew up together. He was 2 years older than me. So I was 18 at the time. He was 20. But looking at him, touching his hair, touching his face, looking at where the marks from where they had put the makeup to cover up the holes, I realized that life is not a life to live. What did we look for? We looked for fame, we looked for power, we looked for guns, we looked for money, we looked for drugs, women. But that day, they were Catholics, Mexican. When they were burying him, none of that went with him. None of the money he had stacked under his, mattress was put in the grave with him. No guns were put in with him. No car was buried with him. No girl that he was dating stepped into the grave. So that day I was like, you know what? Everything that we have kind of been taught is success is not success. These rap songs and these, people that talk about, flash and money and cash and drugs and money and girls and lowriders, and that was our thing, Impalas and hydraulics. And he was 20 years old, being put in a grave with nothing. So I went to his house that day, and his friends were already fighting over his things. His brothers were fighting over, over his clothes. We had, Dickies and Ben Davises. These were like gangster clothes. They were like, I got the jacket. And all the money that he had stacked away was already taken by different family members. So I said, that's it. I have to change my life. So I went on, you could say, a soul searching mission. At that time, even though I called myself a Muslim in some ways because I was from a Muslim family, but I didn't go to a masjid regularly. I'd been to masajid on my own sometimes. I didn't know any Muslims. I didn't grow up with any. I didn't have any Muslim friends. I'll tell you a funny story. You got time?
Yeah.
Okay. So my high school had no Muslims in it. Like my high school had zero Muslims. I was the only one and barely a Muslim. So I used to go to church because all my friends were Catholic or Christian. So the Catholics would go Sundays and they have their own Bible studies. The Christians would have their Sunday and Bible studies on Wednesdays. And so I would go with them, But I still, I wasn't ashamed of who I am. I didn't try to act like I'm not from Pakistan or I'm not Pashtun. So one day on Eid, this is, early 90s, so this is pre 9/11 and all of that. I decided I'm going to take a sword to school. So, it's a school. I mean, there's zero tolerance. You can't even have a knife. And I'm walking around with like a big old scimitar, And they're like, what are you doing? And, the clothing from like India, Pakistan, like what they call the shalwar kameez, So I had one sitting, in my closet. So I wore it that day. So it's all these gang members with bandanas and dickies, and I'm sitting there in shalwar kameez. But I was higher ranked than them, right? So they couldn't say anything to me, right? And I'm walking out with a sword, and the principal's like, what are you doing? You can't carry a sword in school. I was like, no, that's a part of our religion. On this day of Eid, we have to carry a sword. And he was like, okay. So as I was walking around, this girl that I knew named Tina, Mexican girl, right? She comes up to me and she says something to me in Urdu. I was like it threw me off, right? Because I spoke Urdu at home with my mom and stuff. I didn't speak regularly, right? I spoke Pashto a little bit and stuff, but not with anybody else. So I was looking at this Mexican, like, how do you know Urdu? And she's like, no, I'm Afghani. She was Afghan. She spoke Farsi, Dari, and she spoke Urdu because she had lived in Pakistan. But she looked 100%. She had a boyfriend in Carlos who was Mexican, right? And I was like, wait, you're Muslim? And she's like, yeah, I'm Afghan. Like, but you have a boyfriend. And she's like, yeah. I was like, you can't have a boyfriend. And she's like, but what about the... Don't talk about me. It's different.
Yeah.
Which is wrong, by the way. Islamically, it's just as wrong for a boy to have a girlfriend as it for a girl. Islamic, but at the time, mindset was different, right? We didn't understand the religion. So then I went to her boyfriend. We were gang members. Like, you gotta understand, the school, there was nobody that stood up to us other than other gang members that were trying to fight you. And her boyfriend was Mexican, but not a gang member. Right? His name was Carlos. Right? I told him, hey, you know what, Tina? He goes, yeah. Her name wasn't Tina. I'm not gonna mention her real name, but that's what she went by. I just said, hey, you can't date Tina anymore. And he was like, oh, okay, so you want her? And gang members would do that. Like, they would walk up to him and be like, hey, your girlfriend's mine, bye. And you couldn't do anything because what are you going to do? They're going to kill you, right? So he thought that that's what it was. And he was cool with it. Like, that's how Degarati was, right? He was like, all right. And I was like, no, it's not like that. She's like a sister to me, And then he was like, so she's your sister? Like, not exactly, but she's Muslim. And he's like, I know, so what? Like, no, Muslim girls can't date. So then they had to date secretly. Like, her dad didn't care. That's how bad it was. But I cared. So they would date outside of school, but in school they couldn't even hold hands. They couldn't sit next to each other. Because I gave the green light to all the gang. If you see them together, beat them up. Sorry, side story, but anyway.
It's almost like implementing Sharia in a little way at school.
I'm in Canada, bro. Take it easy, man. But it was a misunderstanding of the religion, right? This is you have to. I loved God. I was never an atheist. I always believed in God. I just didn't know exactly how to follow. When I would do something really bad, like bad, I would sometimes take a bus to the masjid on my own and just go pray whatever I could pray, like not even like for a particular salah, and just walk out. And there's a Masjid Abu Bakr in San Diego, beautiful masjid, ICSD, big white dome, you've seen it, right? I remember very clearly going there, and there's a very good brother who runs the store, Abu Al-Izz, very good brother, mashallah. And I remember him, till today he's there, by the way. And I remember walking in there, and I was wearing size 50 dickies, like big pants, and I was wearing these, gangster shoes, and I had bandanas hanging here, and I had the lokes, and there's no way you could tell that I wasn't, whatever. And I remember him going, "Hey, get out of here! I'm gonna call the police!" And because he just thought it was some gang member walking in. And I just looked at him, and I didn't say anything back to him. I just kept walking, and I made wudu the best I could. And I didn't know how to make wudu correctly, but I knew what I knew. And I prayed, and they were just looking at me like shocked, like, "What is this?" And I walked out. I didn't say a word to any of them. So sometimes I would have that want to follow the right, and I think a lot of brothers who are caught up in the wrong life still realize what's right from wrong, and they want to do right. But I had never studied the Quran. I mean, I was never in a madrasa as a kid. My parents never taught me, how to read the Quran. I had an English Quran that my father had, but barely ever read it. But I studied the Bible, and that's a point, by the way. I didn't study the Bible to debate. I had studied the Bible in those days. That's why I knew all the contradictions and all those things, because in Bible studies, all the gang members would be trying to pick up girls or sell drugs, and I would actually be the only gang member sitting there going, "Wait a minute, these ages don't match." And then they'd be like, "Get out." I was kicked out of so many Bible studies, it's not even funny. So when I went on this journey, I started studying everything I could. Like in high school, middle school, I didn't like to read. I didn't like books. I mean, mostly I would just get some nerd to do my homework for me and get my A's. I don't know, that's politically incorrect, I guess. Right? But at this point, I said, you know what? I need to have no. So I got books on Buddhism and Hinduism, and I had some Bibles already, but I tried to get every different type. And I went to Kingdom Halls, and I went to Mormon temples, and I went to a Jewish temple. Yeah, they were not very friendly. They were like, "Nah, you don't want to be Jewish," And I was like, "No, I didn't want to learn." They're like, "Nah, you don't." I was like, "All right." I went to Hindu temples. I went to Hare Krishna places, and they were like, "No meat." I was like, "All right, I'm out." Yeah, I remember I was a Catholic priest. I knew him well, because we used to confess as gang members. We would go to confession, and you would go in that little box, and you'd be like, "Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned." stabbed the guy last night, kidnapped the guy, he's still in my basement, you know. And they wouldn't rat because that's part of the rules. So they'd be like, you know, son, you have to stop that. He'd be like, father, I'm a gang. That's what we do, you know. Like, what do you mean? This is my job, you know. And he's like, well, see you next week. And he would just be like, say Hail Marys and donate to the church, and we would see him. So I remember I went to him because he knew me, you know, and I was like, hey, you know what? I want to become a priest. Like I want to learn. Like I want to be. And he was like, yeah, you can't get married. I was like, all right, I'm out. Not doing that one. You know? um, so after that, alhamdulillah, a lot of other experiences due to time. I'm not gonna get deep into it. I decided I'm gonna be Muslim, but like be Muslim, like never half step anything. You know, never be halfway anything. If you're anything, if you're bad, don't be bad. But if you're gonna be good, dedicate yourself fully, 100%, because that's what a Muslim is. Kafa, yani we enter Islam wholeheartedly. So I started to go to a madrasa, and I was 18 years old, sitting with like 6-year-old kids, and alif fataha, alif kasr e, alif dama'u, e u, and I was like, whatever, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
So Abu Bakr or which masjid?
No, Masjid Noor,
Oh no. Oh,
actually,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And that's I
Yeah,
went that
and
route. I went to Tablighi, so it was good. I mean, it got me away from other stuff, and
yeah.
it was you were involved in it like all the time. I had a very good friend named Muhammad. He's in Jordan now. I have a very good friend named Idris. He's still in San Diego with us. I have a brother named Farooq. He's a revert, very good friend. He's still with us, mashallah. So we became like friends, and we started to hang out together. We're all about the same age, and we left, whatever background. They came from different backgrounds. I came from a gang. One of them used to be like a guitar player, whatever. But we all came together for the sake of Allah. But then the problem gets to be, as we said earlier, you can leave the street, but the street doesn't leave you. Um, the hood called, like my friends out, and these are people that I grew up with. These are they were closer than blood brothers, like people that went through experience. They were like, hey, haven't seen you in a while, man. You all right? And you locked up or what happened? Because the gang had a code. If you get locked up, they would send money to your family. From the drug earnings, they would do that. Nowadays, it's all gone. Like it's all messed up. But at that time, the rules were strict. Um, and I was like, no, man, I'm Muslim. And they're like, oh, all right, cool. Well, was a party on Saturday? I mean, bring the gun. We'll see you there. And I was like, no, I'm Muslim. Like we don't do that. We don't drink. We don't party. We don't engage in that kind of lifestyle. I can't sell drugs. I can't kill people. I can't. Those things are haram, and I would throw words like haram. They'd be like, what the hell is he talking about, nowadays, like with the rap culture, like, haram and wallahi has become like popular, even like non-Muslim rappers are like, inshallah, but back then, nobody knew what a Muslim, like I'd walk around with a thobe and people thought I was Jewish, so, subhanallah, there, I told him no, and he's like, look, I remember, it was a very good friend of mine. I grew up with him. He said, look, I'm Catholic, this guy's Christian, these guys are all different religions. No problem. Your religion, we respect religion. And they did. I still remember one time we were in a lowrider with one of the OGs, at that time I was a teenager, he was like in his late 30s. He had done like 25 years in prison or something crazy. A very elder gang member. Because gang members don't live that long. So if you're that old, you and you're still involved, and we had music playing in the car, and we were going by Masjid Abu Bakr. And Masjid Abu Bakr, you can see very clearly it's a masjid. And he's like, turn the music off. And the guys, of course, they listen, they turn it off. And then one of the guys was like, why do we turn the music off? And he's like, you don't see a house of God? Like, he didn't even care if it was a masjid or a church or synagogue, but they had a respect for religion. So they were like, look, we respect religion. You need to go pray, go to your whatever church you go to, no problem. But gang world's gang world. Gang comes first. There's a rule: blood in, blood out. If you wanted to be from the circle, the 13, you had to spill blood. You had to kill somebody, and the only way to leave is to die. Those gangs are not like you just drop out. I mean, when you're a low-level gang member, yes, you could drop out. Nobody cares. When you're high in it, you can't leave. You know too much. So I had a friend growing up that got shot. And he became a paraplegic. So, he was a teenager, got shot in the back, and he became paralyzed from the neck down. He was in a wheelchair, you know, but he still couldn't leave the gang. He would roll his wheelchair, or be rolled to where the gang hangout is and sit there with us. You know? And he got killed later on because there was a drive-by from another gang. Everybody ran, but he couldn't. So kind of sad. But that's how. People that were doing life without parole in prison were still in the gang. People that got shot and couldn't move were still in the gang. When you're up there, you couldn't leave. So they were like, "There is no leaving," And I was like, "Look, whatever, but I can't. These two worlds don't mix." So they were like, "Okay, well, then expect us to come knocking." And I knew the consequences. I knew what it's about, and I was ready. What are you gonna do? I lived a life where I faced death so many times already for wrong reasons. Why would I be afraid to face it for the right reasons? So I told him, "Okay, look, I got guns. You got guns. You know me. If you guys come, I'm gonna take a lot of you with me. It's not gonna be, I know how you're gonna do it. You know how I'm gonna do it. It's not worth it. But if you wanna come," and they were like, "Well, it's not about being worth it. It's rules." I remember him saying, "What's a society without rules? We always have to have rules, and these are our rules."
You still have guns?
I'm in Canada. I don't know if I can answer that question.
It's still legal, yeah.
I have many legal guns. I have more guns now than I did back then.
Oh, wow.
But they're all legal in accordance to laws. Guess how many guns I have? About
I think I might 70s,
20?
80s.
Whoa. I'm in California, bro. Calm down. Now I have 53 guns.
Oh, mashallah.
Legally.
Mostly pistols or rifles or
Everything. But legal. I want to emphasize legal. Yeah. I have a room with safes. We have to lock them up. Yeah. Good luck with those when somebody busts a 9mm at you. But yeah, so subhanallah, that was probably the most stressful time in my life because I knew that they knew everything about me. They knew my school, they knew my friends, they knew my routine, they knew what kind of drink I like, they knew what kind of food I like, they knew the restaurants I would go to. And the biggest thing I was worried about was my mother. Because I knew they wouldn't go after my mother, but if they were going to shoot up my house, they weren't going to try to come in. They would just shoot it from the outside. My mother was laying there, bullets don't discriminate. So I would go to school in the morning. I signed up for college. I, would go to madrasa. I would work, and at nights I would spend, in my attic. There was a vent, with like little bars, and I would just sit there with guns, looking at the street, waiting for the cars to come and, try to shoot back, to try to protect my house and my mom and my life. And subhanallah, one night, 2 nights, 3 nights, week, 2 weeks, nothing happened. 3 weeks. After a while, I started thinking like, what's going on? But then I started thinking, man, these are people that I went through like life and death experiences with. These are people that would get caught up by the cops and they would be under, stress and wouldn't rat on me. These are people that if I was stuck in a bad neighborhood where enemy territory, I could call them and they would drop what they're doing and grab guns and cars and show up to a fight to protect me, or me for them, right? So I thought, if Allah blessed me with guidance, isn't it upon me to take the message to them? People always ask me, how did you get started in da'wah? This is how I got started in da'wah. So I decided, I'm going to go talk to them. And they have a alley. It's a alleyway behind a street called Euclid Avenue.
Yeah.
So that was our hood.
Which was it? Euclid and
So where between University and El Cajon,
yeah,
is Euclid.
yeah.
Behind that whole alleyway was ours. Between, I think it's Trojan.
Not
behind-
Winona.
No. Vinona's on the other side.
Yeah.
But that whole thing was ours. Now it's a lot of Muslims there, but
Yeah.
at that time it was all Mexicans. So when you would go in that alley, you would have these young kids on the rooftop spotting. Right? We would pay these kids, nothing big, but they would get paid. That was their job, to just be on the roof and see who's coming in. So if you see from the roof like a bunch of cop cars, because cop cars will never go there one car. If they're going to come deep. Because they go one car, they're going to get shot at. So if you saw cop cars, they would send a code. You would see the code. You would know it's the cops, right? Um, we would pagers, so we would send a page. If it was a regular person, then we call them customers, right? And there'd be a code because we knew they didn't live there. So you would open the garage door and then you would walk out to the car, like, what do you want? And they would order their Amazon order and you would prime deliver it right there. And at night, if any car was going through that we didn't recognize, we would point lasers, the red dots, just into the car. So they would be like, they should know you don't drive through this alley. And if they still didn't leave, then he would shoot the car. So I was like, okay, if I go in there armed, there's no way I'm getting out. I mean, it's one guy against, whatever, 50, 60 of them that are sitting there armed at that one moment. So what am I going to do, right? So I was like, I'm not going to go armed. I'm not trying to fight. I'm trying to give them dawah. And I was wearing a thobe and imama, and like I had my beard growing in. And I could just imagine, like, I don't know, those kids must have been confused. There's a guy in a dress, like I don't know what code they sent, because nobody knew Muslims back then. Like, nobody knew what Islam was. So I walked in and I'm walking in the alley, and as I'm walking up to the garage where I know they're they're looking at me, and at first they didn't recognize me because obviously I was dressed different. I had a beard now and all this. And when they recognized me, they were like, "Are you crazy, Holmes? I mean, they what's wrong with you?" They used to call me shooter, but also as for graffiti, used to call me loke, like loke, crazy. And they were like, "You're loco, loco. What's wrong with you, man? We're thinking about how to kill you without, too many of us dying. You just walked in here. Are you armed?" I was like, "Nah, man, I'm not armed. I'm not here to fight." They're like, I remember one of my very good friends, but it was a gang member. He told me, "Look, I swear to God, you're not gonna walk out of here alive." He said, "Whatever happens, you're not gonna walk out of here alive." I was like, "All right, well, let me just tell you about Islam, and then if you want to kill me, whatever, it is what it is. But I'm gonna tell you." But see, I knew how they thought, and that's why many of you that may be involved in street life, you know what that mindset is like, so you can use that for doubt. Okay? When you clean yourself, you can. So here, for a while, I had to kind of get away from them, but then now I kind of came back in to pull as many as I could out. So I said, "Look, this guy got killed, this guy got killed, this guy got shot. They're all people we all grew up with, right? Let's go over what?" And they're like, "What, the body or homes or the hood?" I said, "What hood? You don't own the place. People that died 10, 15 years ago for the same gang today, none of you guys even know who they are. I mean, what are you dying for? What about your moms? What about your children? What about your family? You think life is just about this? You don't think there's a bigger purpose of life? Maybe like, Jesus died for my sins, I'm going to go to heaven." I was like, that doesn't make sense. I started like talking to them because they all were Christian or Catholics, both. But when I started breaking it down to them, they were like, it started to resonate. You could tell from their faces. But the thing is, they were so caught up in that world. When you challenge that worldview, it kind of threw them off their axis. So one of the veteranos, he was like, "Look," he was an OG, like big guy. He said, "Look, we're gonna let you live. You became religious. We respect it. We're gonna give you a pass. Just get out of here. Just leave. Stop talking, and we're gonna." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I got a chance. They're not gonna kill me. Woohoo! I'm doing better than expected. Didn't think I'd make it this far." So I told him, "Okay, I'll leave on one condition. You guys gotta come to the mosque. You gotta come to the masjid. Whichever one can, you come." And they're like, "Man, you're crazy. We're letting you live, and now you're trying to So I kept talking. They were like, "All right, fine." And a lot of them came. I mean, if you look at some of the old Masjid Nur heads, they can tell you, we would make special food for them, and they would come and sit down, and we'd talk to them on Thursday nights, and we'd chop it up with them, and I would give them da'wah. And alhamdulillah, about 12 of them became Muslim. And a lot of them didn't. It's not a movie, it's reality. And from those 12, a lot of them still got killed because old vendettas. You kill somebody's brother, they don't forget about it. One of them ended up, he was somebody who sleep around a lot, ended up having AIDS, died from it, but he died a Muslim. You Allah forgive his sins. Some of them had to move out of San Diego because they had the old vendettas, and then I just left that world. And so this is the whole point of tonight. You can leave. I mean, you're alive. Yeah, there's consequences. You might get killed. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But I can tell you this, if you stay with that world, there's only two places, either prison or a grave. That's the only two places you're going to go. There is no third place for. Have you ever seen like a 50-year-old gang member with like Audi, sitting around sipping martinis. No, like either you're gonna do the rest of your life in prison, and trust me, prison is no fun. I mean, you can ask those brothers. This is not like the movie. There's no women in prison, and there's no parties in prison. There's no, I have people that I grew up with that are doing life without parole, meaning they will never. There's no parole ever for them. Not a life sentence, 25, 30, 40 years, and they got in when they were 21, 20, 19. They will never enjoy life like me and you. They will never go out and have some ice cream. They can't. And they're active sureños, so they're in the SHU. It's called a secured housing unit. That means 23 hours a day, they're in a cell that's 6 foot by 10 foot. One of my friends used to write to me. He said, if I put my arms out, I can touch the sides. And 1 hour a day, they're allowed to go out and walk around in a little fenced-in area, and they can't speak to anybody. 20, no TV, no Wi-Fi for the young kids, no Xbox, no PlayStation. And the only interaction is the little slot opened and a food dish is thrown at you by guards. You go crazy. Is that the life you want? Or it's a grave. How many people have been shot here in Toronto? Muslims. One of the most pathetic and disgusting things that I hear is there's Muslim on Muslim violence here. Muslim gang members killing other Muslims? Like, I can't imagine that. Even though I was raised in that world, but wallahi, even back then, if I knew somebody was Muslim, I would protect them. Let alone, there was a bus driver, Allah reward him. His name is Suleiman Hassan, good brother. I'm still in touch with him. And he used to drive the school bus from my school.
Oh.
And one day, he was making salah. And I was looking at him, I was like, wow, that guy's Muslim, because I knew what salah was. And I walked up and joined. I don't really know what to do. Like, I don't know how to qada and all that, right? But I just joined him. And then afterward, I was like, hey, I'm Muslim too. And I had a gold chain. Astaghfirullah. And he said, Allah. My grandma had given it to me. I was like, see? That was my evidence for being Muslim. And he was like, he was a good brother, but he was like, anyway. So, like, I respected Muslims. And for Muslims to fight each other over drugs or blocks or it's insanity. What's wrong with you guys? This is your brother in Islam. So, after that, alhamdulillah, I just cold turkey left. I didn't talk about it. I got married. Alhamdulillah, I've been married 20 some odd years now, like 2001. I stopped counting. And I didn't even talk to my wife about it until recently. I didn't even talk to her. I blocked that part of my life out. And I went to go study, and alhamdulillah, I went to different countries and sat with ulama and mashayikh and mahad. And alhamdulillah.
Sheikh, how did you pay for all that?
Myself. I never took loans. I never took scholarships. I never asked anybody for money. I would work. I would save up money, and instead of spending it on stupid stuff, I would save that money, and then I would quit my job. And with my wife and kids, I would go and travel. And I went to the UAE. I went to Jordan. I went to Pakistan. I went to different countries. And when I would run out of money, I would come back to the US and get a job and work and save up and then go again. I mean, I went. I think it was 2004. I went 2006, 2007, 2011. I spent a year and a half in Pakistan, the Mahad al-Lugha al-Arabiya first, and then the Jamia al-Islamiyya. And at this time, we continued street dawah. And street dawah at that time was me just going to a street corner and saying, look, I know you're a gang member. I can tell from what you're wearing what gang you're from. I've been there. You can get out. I'll see drug dealers, pimps. Back in the days, I would know some of them. And then later, I didn't know them, but I knew where they were coming from. And I would just talk to them. And I don't have a table, I don't have pamphlets, nothing, it was just me. And then, alhamdulillah, some brothers got together, we got a table, we got pamphlets, we got English translations. We didn't get funding from anybody, we did it ourselves. And then there's a brother, Mukarram, may Allah reward him, he's the Amir of OMF. And one day he was like, I wanna record you giving da'wah. I was like, why would you want to record? It's such a boring thing, just me talking. So nobody's gonna watch this, And he's like, yeah, it's okay, we're gonna put it on this thing called YouTube. And I was like, all right, fine, whatever. And alhamdulillah, it grew from there. And now, alhamdulillah, in the last 2 years that we've been tracking, And before we had people that became Muslim, but we didn't really have a tracking system. Now that we're tracking, we've had more than 3,000 shahadas, alhamdulillah. Probably getting closer to 3,200, alhamdulillah. I mean, most of those are from online shahadas now. So people like yourselves that take our videos and share them and put WhatsApp statuses and put them on your Instagram reels have really grown the da'wah. And now, alhamdulillah, every country in the world is seeing our da'wah. And our da'wah organization, well, alhamdulillah, myself, till today, I don't take a single penny from OMF. You can speak to the president, ask him. I don't take a single penny from our masjid. I don't make any money off da'wah. Myself, I make no money off da'wah. We pay people for different services, we pay people for taxes, we pay people for editing and stuff. But I personally don't take a penny. But alhamdulillah, the da'wah is growing, and there's a lot of channels in Arabic and Spanish and other languages. Some of them, like we have a Spanish channel and an Urdu channel, Hindi channel to give da'wah. But some of them we don't even know who they are. In the Uzbek language and other languages, they're translating the videos, and we get people from all over the world coming and saying, "I want to become Muslim," and they've never even seen. Like, I don't have an Instagram account myself, but there are people who have set up Instagram accounts for us. Allah reward them, and TikTok accounts and other YouTube accounts. And we don't copyright anything. We don't care about money. We don't make money off monetization and stuff. We're just worried about the da'wah growing. Alhamdulillah, it is.
Alhamdulillah.
It's a long story.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
That was a short version.
I know it was a short version. SubhanAllah, there's so many online questions. However, we own Maghrib's like in 8 minutes, inshallah. Um, so maybe we can ask a few here, and if there's questions in the audience. I just wanted to mention as well for any brothers, kind of what really led us to make an event like this. Were those brothers actually? They knew the Sheikh, and we wanted to do something uh, for them because they were from the community. One of the brothers, he came here not knowing Alif Bata. Alhamdulillah, after Ustad Bilal, I think about 6 7 months now, he can recite from anywhere in the Quran easily. Alhamdulillah. So now he's able to recite the Quran there. So inshallah, this is an invitation for anyone, any brothers or sisters that like to just get back on their deen or just learn a little bit more. And it's an invitation from us at the masjid. It's another reason that we try to make this as cost, and we didn't charge for it today. We didn't try to arrange free parking for everyone. Everyone who prays here knows the issue about this masjid is parking, but even for that, we try to arrange something for a chance for everyone to come back or to return back to Allah, or return back to the deen. The masjid is here for you, inshallah. So please, and it's interesting about your story that um, when you were in times of difficulty, you went to the masjid, and that's where subhanAllah, where hidayah came from. And I think it's perfect that this story, this event is taking place here. Alhamdulillah. I think we only have time for maybe two questions from online. But one of the questions from, um, I think it's a brother, but he's asking about what can be done in terms of leaving the life if everywhere I go, people are trying to target me. Though I've left the gang life, it still follows me. I can't even eat food at a restaurant in peace.
Leave the city.
Mm.
As I said, many of the people, I myself had to kind of move around and leave where I was raised. Even though I stayed in San Diego, but I moved neighborhoods. But a lot of my other friends that became Muslim, that were gang members, they literally left the city. Some left the country. Um, أرض الله الواسع. The land of Allah is vast. Don't think that you have to be in this. Like I said, if you have a job as a whatever. If you're a doctor, example, you can be a doctor somewhere else. If you're a bus boy at a hotel, you can be a bus boy at a hotel somewhere else. And I mean, however, on the spectrum that you are, don't think that Allah cannot give you risk somewhere else, right? If you're in Toronto, go to Vancouver. If you're in Vancouver, come to Toronto. Go to Quebec or London. They have a city called London here, right? Right? If you want to come to the U.S., come to the U.S., right? Go somewhere else, But If that situation is such, you have to just extract yourself out of that environment. There's a beautiful hadith about a man that killed 99 people. You all know the hadith. And that's a beautiful hadith for those that are caught up in this world. This man killed 99 people. That's gangster. I mean, I knew some murderers, but I don't think they even killed 99 people, right? And he went to a person who was a worshiper and told him, "Can I ever be forgiven?" And the person who's abid, who's a very staunch worshiper, always sees the gravity of the sin, which is good. They're very scared to sin, but sometimes don't understand the mercy of Allah. So he was like, 99 people, that's no, you can't be forgiven. That's horrible. And the man killed him, made it 100. Then he went to a person of knowledge. A person of knowledge understands. The person of knowledge told him, you can be forgiven, but you have to leave your environment. You have to leave where you're at. So leave.
Inshallah.
Better than being killed, right?
Yes, subhanallah.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Last question here. I think this is very relevant for any brothers or anyone stuck in the situation. If they kill one of mine, why can't I kill one of theirs? Doesn't Allah say an eye for an eye?
It's a good question. Um, if they kill one of yours and you kill one of theirs, and then they kill one of yours and you kill one of theirs, where does it stop? What are you killing over?
Mm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just. Yes, we have adl. If somebody wrongs you, you have the right to go to a judge and take your right from them, right? But that doesn't mean in the Sharia you take the law into your own hands, right? If somebody harms you in the Sharia, you can't just go and punch them. No, you have to go to a judge. There are rules. For example, they kill one of you, but what was it over? Was it over you killing one of them, right? Was it over drugs? Was it over things that are not in the Sharia? Then you cannot misuse the Islamic law. Yes, we have justice in Islam. We don't believe in turning the other cheek because that's not practical. That's not, nobody does that, right? But justice has rules and regulations. So if you kill one of them and they kill one of you and you keep going back and forth, there's no end to it. Rather, what we do in Islam is if you have a system where you can go to an Islamic judge and put the case in front of them, he can then give a ruling. If you don't have that system, you can't use this in your own hands.
SubhanAllah.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. 2 minutes. Uh,
Two quick questions. If the sisters have it, they can text you.
Hold on, give me one sec. I have to be fair. No, so I'll clarify. We can't continue after Maghrib. The Sheikh has to go to Salahuddin after. Maybe I'll take this time to make this announcement, inshallah. So the Sheikh is here on behalf of AIM Conference, Authentic Ilm Mission. This is happening in Scarborough. This is the third event, the second conference happening in Toronto. Sheikh is here at Salahuddin Islamic Center from today till Monday, inshallah. So the conference is happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and there's also something called the Authentic Ilm Institute. This is a more more of a more educational program, and so this goes delving in deep with the mashayikh that came, and this is Saturday, Sunday, and the whole day on Monday, inshallah. And the schedules we have them over here. You can also visit the website as well, inshallah. So Salah is coming in. Inshallah, I just want to remind the brothers and sisters we have refreshments for everyone after on your way out, inshallah. And if anyone has parked at the Canadian Tire, please make sure to get a parking pass on your way out. Please make sure to get a parking pass on your way out, inshallah. Also, alhamdulillah, we have our dear brother here, Kishka, alhamdulillah, who has agreed to help us out. Inshallah, he'll be videoing, interviewing, things like that, inshallah, please let him know as well. It's going to help out the masjid, inshallah. So I think with that, get one of the youth, with the Muaddin's permission, one of the youth want to make adhan.
Okay. Do you want to take a couple of questions quickly before Adhan or no?
Tayyib, okay.
Quick two questions. Inshallah, we will do some street da'wah. When and where has not been confirmed yet, but inshallah we will.
From one of the old elders.
Wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah.
I never see in my life getting many. There's many people that came actually your lecture. I hope you observed from your lecture
Inshallah.
about the influences that they're being bombarded by the dunya. But if we can get them into the dawahs,
Inshallah.
subhanallah, Shafi knows what I'm involved in.
Yes.
We can make this better than anyone. You know, Yangtze is the longest street in the world. I don't think that valid on the whole street, but
Young
here,
street.
at least here in downtown core, we can have this view during the dawahs.
Alhamdulillah, I think that's a great point. All of you young brothers here, get involved in the da'wah. This is a responsibility upon us. This brother is here, Brother Shafni is here. Reach out, volunteer. Want to see all of you guys involved, inshallah.
Inshallah, one more thing I want to also extend is for any brothers who would like to. This is like, I'll put a condition here, but any brothers who might be stuck in that life and would like maybe to have a question to the Sheikh, inshallah, we can try to arrange that. Maybe once he leaves, though, it'll be over the phone, inshallah. But this I can, I'll let everyone, any of the brothers or people who are stuck in that life, inshallah, or need to find a way out, maybe they can, Sheikh can give some advice, inshallah. Brothers, I'm really sorry. It's hard to be, hard to answer everyone's questions, inshallah, even the people online who ask. But we're going to make the adhan now. Inshallah. So we'll start with the adhan. Jazakallah khair.
One of the youngsters.
You can put it on the stand.